Following the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, the German anti-tank and tank units came into contact with the KV series and T-34 tanks. To their shock, the available anti-tank armaments proved almost powerless against these new Soviet vehicles. Luckily for the Germans, they were well-trained, experienced, and better supplied in the early stages of the war in the Soviet Union. The Soviet tanks lacked logistical support, were often poorly used and led, had horrendous reliability issues, and their crews were not sufficiently trained. But, as time went on, the Soviets began to rapidly increase the production of their tanks, and their crews and command staff gained more and more experience. Thus, the Germans slowly lost the advantage that they had in the early stages of Operation Barbarossa. Relying solely on experience and better tactics was not enough, and stronger armament was needed, not only for the Panzer IV, but also for the Sturmgeschütz. While primarily designed to act as infantry support, they showed great anti-tank potential as well. So it was logical for the Germans to use this potential by giving them even stronger armament in the form of the longer 7.5 cm guns, creating two new and almost identical versions, the F and the F8. Their first improvement attempts made regarding the 7.5 cm guns consisted of introducing newly shaped charge rounds in late 1941. While these could penetrate the thick armor of the Soviet tanks, their effectiveness was quite limited by the rather poor ballistic characteristics of such rounds. Another possibility was to improve the muzzle velocity of the existing guns by simply introducing longer gun barrels and larger propellant charges. In May of 1940, Krupp tested the installation of a 7.5 cm L-41 gun inside a modified Panzer III Ausf.F chassis that received a completely redesigned soft steel Stug III superstructure. There was a major interest in this weapon, but the whole project was officially cancelled in November 1941. Krupp's work was not a complete waste of resources, as some elements of this gun were merged with the Rheinmetall Borsig 7.5 cm PaK-40 anti-tank gun, leading to the creation of a new armament. In this case of the Stug III, this was adopted as the 7.5 cm Sturmkanon or Stug 40 L-43 gun. One prototype was installed on a modified Stug III Ausf.F at the start of 1942. The installation proved to be feasible and did not require any major changes to the overall design. Changes mainly involved adding new munition racks, improving the ventilators, and some other minor changes. Once these were finalized, the vehicles entered production as the Ausf.F, followed by the slightly modified F8. The latter was a bit of an anomaly regarding its designation. The F8 designation referred to the base chassis being the Panzer III Ausf.J, designated by the factory as the 8 series. The production of the Ausf.F began in late March and ended in September of 1942. During this period, some 366 would be built. The production of the Ausf.F8 began in September and ended in December. By that time, some 250 more vehicles were built. The Stug III Ausf.F and F8 were, in many regards, almost identical, and without a good viewing angle, almost impossible to distinguish between. For a start, they shared the same Panzer III chassis, and inherited many vital components from the previous versions. This included the same torsion bar suspension, overall layout, 4 crew members, and the Maybach HL120 TRM engine. The best way to distinguish these two from each other is the rear part of the engine compartment. The F8 was built using the Panzer III Ausf.J, which incorporated a hull that was extended to the back. It was covered by a larger armor plate that had a round cover for the engine starter. Another noticeable feature of the F8 was the use of shortened front fenders. In addition, the Ausf.F8 used a single no-tech headlight placed at the center of the upper front hull armor. This feature was also present on some late-built Ausf.Fs. Overall, the superstructure's design remained the same as on the Ausf.F version. The majority of the Ausf.F8 built had the angle on the upper plate above the driver increased. This provided better protection but also strengthened the whole construction. The opening for the periscope sight was slightly redesigned, and some vehicles received a mesh cage. Its purpose was to protect the crew from enemy hand grenades or other projectiles aimed at this opening. Realistically, this didn't help much. The folding radio antennas were replaced with a fixed mount, located on either side of the vehicle's superstructure. These two were formidably protected from the front, with 80 mm of armor. As the delivery of such thick plates was not yet fully implemented by German industry, as a temporary solution, 30 mm of armor plates were to be welded, or more often simply bolted on the Stug III's already existing 50 mm frontal armor. The crews themselves would add additional material to their vehicles in the hope of further increasing the protection. Adding concrete on the upper front superstructure appears to have been somewhat common among Stug 3 crews. To protect against Soviet anti-tank rifles, 5mm thick Schürzen armor plates covering the sides of the vehicle were added in May of 1943. The Stug 3F was rearmed with the 7.5cm Stug 40 L43 gun. This offered a huge improvement in anti-tank capabilities in contrast to the earlier gun, and installation of the new armament was possible despite its larger size. The 7.5cm Stug 40 had a semi-automatic breech with a vertical sliding block and was electrically fired. Having a semi-automatic breech meant that the gun would self-eject, thus increasing the overall firing rate. The large recoil cylinders were placed above the gun and were protected by a box-shaped armored deflector guard. The early L43 guns were usually equipped with the ball-shaped muzzle brake, but later models received the improved double-chambered muzzle brake. Using a standard armor-piercing round, it was capable of piercing about 80mm of armor angled at 30 degrees. Rare tungsten-cored rounds had an even better performance of 97mm at the same distance. With the larger rounds, it was necessary to redesign the ammunition storage racks inside the new Stug 3s. The standard ammunition load consisted of 44 rounds, and later in production, the ammunition storage was increased to 54. Despite the need for improved anti-tank weapons, the production of the L43 was quite limited due to the introduction of the longer L48 gun. Thus, only some 120 Ausf.F vehicles were armed with the shorter guns, the remaining being equipped with the later gun. This often leads to misconceptions that the Stug 3F vehicles were armed with the L43 while the F8s were armed solely with the L48, which is not true. Several changes were made to the superstructure to accommodate the larger gun. The front gun opening was slightly enlarged, and on top of the central part of the superstructure, a protected ventilation port was added. This was necessary as the increased propellant charge created more exhaust gases, which could be dangerous for the crew. For self-defense, these vehicles were provided with an MG-34 machine gun, which was operated by the loader. Initially, the machine gun operator was not provided with a shield, which exposed the operator to enemy fire. To resolve this, in December 1942, a square-shaped machine gun shield was tested, located in the front of the loader's hatch. The first combat engagement of the Stug 3 Ausf.F was carried out by the Großdeutschland assault gun battery. This unit was sent to the east as part of the new German offensive towards Stalingrad. They claimed to have destroyed 41 Soviet tanks during the brief period of 28th of June to 7th of July 1942. Despite having superior anti-tank performances, they were mostly used in engaging fortified enemy positions, as seen in the ammunition counts used during the time. Some 910 high-explosive rounds were fired in comparison to the 431 armor-piercing shells. Both the KV-1 and T-34 could be quite easily penetrated frontally at ranges of 600 meters. This clearly showed that, despite the change in armament, the Stug 3 remained primarily an infantry support weapon. The 667th Battalion, which served as part of the Army Group Center, also saw success against enemy armor. They helped the German defenders turn back a Soviet tank attack in early August 1942. In the engagement, they destroyed some 19 T-34s. Later, at the end of August, the unit was repositioned to Rzhev. There, in a 4-day engagement, the Stug 3s managed to destroy 83 Soviet tanks. The commander of the 3rd Battery, Klaus Wagner, was credited with the destruction of 18 tanks. As he was severely wounded during this engagement, he was replaced by Oberleutnant Baumann. On September 9th, the Soviets launched another offensive with some 50 T-34s. Their opponents only had about 5 Stugs left. Despite being greatly outnumbered, the Stug 3s managed to inflict huge losses on the Soviet armor and infantry. The Soviets lost 33 tanks, while the Germans lost all but 1 Stug. As it was severely depleted, the 667th Battalion was moved to the rear for replacement and recuperation. At the end of November 1942, the 202nd Battalion, equipped with 21 Stug 3s, participated in the defensive operations of the 9th Army in the area of Rzhev. An Army combat report dated on the 3rd of January 1943 listed the total number of enemy armored vehicle losses from the 25th of November 1942 to the 17th of December 1942. The 202nd was credited with the destruction of 195, and the 667th Battalion with 109 armored vehicles destroyed. In the case of the 202nd, this number included 180 tanks, with 15 T-26s, 61 T-60s and T-70s, 94 T-34s, and lastly 10 KV-1s. In March of 1943, the Stug III would see extensive combat action around the important city of Kharkov. During the fighting that lasted from the 7th to the 20th of March, the Panzergrenadier Division Großdeutschland inflicted heavy tank losses on the Soviets. Of some 247 destroyed tanks, the Stug III Ausf.F 8 alone was credited with the destruction of 41. Near Leningrad at the same time, another Stug unit was causing havoc on Soviet armor. This was the 226th, which claimed to have destroyed 210 enemy tanks by this point, albeit at the loss of 13 of its own vehicles. Stug III vehicles were generally a rare sight in North Africa. 4 Stug III Ausf.F 8s from the 242nd Battalion saw action there. This single battery was renamed the 90th Battery and was attached to the 10th Panzer Division at the start of 1943. Some of them would survive until the Axis forces surrendered in May of 1943. Occupied Yugoslavia was another front where the Stug III Ausf.F 8 would see service. Given the lack of and sometimes confusing sources regarding armored vehicles used in this theater of war, pinpointing the precise use of this particular version is unclear. But the fact that one such vehicle was captured by the Yugoslav partisans indicates that at least a few Stug III Ausf.F 8s saw service there. Some F-8s were also stationed in Greece during 1943. The Stug III Ausf.F 8 would also see action against the Allies in Italy and likely in the West. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division had at least 30 Stug IIIs in its inventory, including some F-8s. These were stationed in Sicily and unsuccessfully tried to turn the Allies back. Some Stug III F-8s even saw service in Finland in 1944. By this point, they were generally a rare sight, being replaced by the final Stug III Ausf.G version that was armed with the same gun. That concludes our video about the Stug III Ausf.F and F8. What do you think of these two assault guns that paved the road for the mass-produced Ausf.G version? Share your opinions in the comments section. If you haven't done so already, we invite you to subscribe to stay updated on future content. If you'd like to contribute further, consider Patreon or PayPal. Your contributions help us create more engaging videos. Until next time, stay focused and stay tuned.